starting recording.
Woo!
Twig, it's been a week.
Dude, you're speaking at Harvard?
I'm speaking at Harvard Law School. I know. I started to tell Twig the story, and she's like, "Why aren't we recording?"
Yeah, I'm very proud. I'm like, that means I'm sort of speaking at Harvard. Tell me
You are.
everything. What's
Well,
going on?
there's a big conference, and apparently there's some Twig and Jenkins fans at the Harvard Law School, and so I'm the keynote. It's a day-long conference, and it's with the Asian Law Students Association. I did
Oh,
speak at the Black Law Students Association at Columbia a few years ago. So this really, I'm hitting both now. I got
which
the
I
black
love.
the Black Law students at Columbia, the Asian Law students at Harvard Law. Yeah, so I got to write a thing. I don't know what I'm gonna say. You have to give me some tips on what to say in this
Is
moment.
there a topic?
No, they were like, well, I mean, I looked at the
Anything you want?
full agenda. The full agenda was like, public interest and how to use your voice and how to change public policy. It was interesting.
Amazing.
Um,
You should ask your wife. You should ask Marina.
this is true.
Ivy League law grad. You should maybe she has more advice for you than I do.
I spoke at the Columbia Bolsa event, and Marina came and watched, and that was embarrassing because then she
Was
was
that
like, "What are you?"
nerve-wracking?
She's like, "What are you saying? You're not a lawyer. You're
They
not saying
invited the
anything you
wrong
just said."
Jenkins.
Exactly. But no, I mean, look, Twig and Jenkins fans are everywhere. So God bless Harvard Law School. God bless. We got to do a carousel of all of the Twig and Jenkins hoodies because they're now a
Oh my
lot.
God. I know. It's so
Greg,
cool.
that photo of Greg on the beach with the
I
sunset.
know. I know.
I
Like
mean,
among one of the most handsome men alive too.
just
So
such a good looking man.
in golden hour. I know. I know. Shout
Yeah, just like
out.
the sun was like cascading across his face, his visage. It was
I
beautiful.
know. He's
It
a
was beautiful.
newlywed. Shout out to
Whoa.
yeah, shout out to him and his husband. Yeah, no, fantastic. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, we will get a carousel.
We
And then
gotta get a recap.
I keep they keep arrive like I keep ordering myself one and then someone's like over or someone asks for one, so I have to keep giving mine away.
Yeah.
Um
We haven't even done a photo of you and I in them, which is absurd.
right.
Like
Well, when
we
I
should
come to DC
hire
next.
when you're in DC next, we should get like one of our dope photographers, like maybe Harrison, who did our Questlove party, and just do like a dope Twig and Jenkins photo
Merch
shoot.
shoot.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fuck
Yeah,
yeah.
let's
Yeah.
do it.
Like provocative, like Zaddy Ezra Klein style. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like maybe it's
We're
just
gonna need a
me.
black and white
Yeah.
seamless, and
Black.
then
Yes.
just like a two camera setup, one just looking straight down the barrel, one coming in out from the side so
Yeah.
you can see the yeah.
Yeah. And maybe I'm like Tom Cruise in Risky Business. No pants. No pants. Just
That's a take. That's a take. That's a
that's
creative
gonna get
direction that we can explore. Listen,
I don't
apparently there's no bad
know.
ideas, but we'll put it on the mood board,
You
see
know
how
what?
it sticks amongst
We'll
some of the
just
other ideas that we could surface.
we could just see how it plays. A/B test it. We A/B test it.
We A/B test it.
Yeah.
There's definitely a demo. There's definitely a core audience for that kind of content.
There
We just got
actually
to
is
figure
a
out how big it is. Well, you've been in the gym.
there actually is a
I assume you're not neglecting your leg days.
no, I am. I'm not a leg day guy.
You're
It's
not a
just
leg day guy.
no, it's just all core, arms, and shoulders.
Do you have
I
skinny
don't
legs? I don't even know what your legs look like.
very skinny legs, chicken legs. I got great
Do you
calves though.
really?
Got
Oh,
great
that's
calves.
good.
Yeah.
That's nice. A nice.
Anyway,
It's good
this
for a
is the
man to have
best.
nice calves.
This is the best
Once
Twig and Jenkins.
again.
This is the best Twig and Jenkins open, maybe of all time. I don't even know what we're talking about. But
Who knows?
Twig, I just want to hear from you. You and I have not spoken in a while. I was MIA this whole week. I apologize. Twig and I just did a catch up, and I just apologize profusely the whole time for being MIA this week. How are you doing? I want to know how your mental health state is. I want to know how LA is doing in the midst of the LA wildfire recovery. Also, this is a very big industry time with all the awards shows. I know you just went to an award show. We've got the Oscars coming up. So how are you doing in the year of our Lord 2025? How are we doing?
I'm actually this is one of those things. It's like when people ask you how you are and you have to caveat, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm great.
Yeah.
The minute I look up and out, things start decreasing a little bit. But like personally, I am having a great time.
Yeah.
It is super fun. It's a super fun time in LA. The sun is out. It's gorgeous. Like the ocean is not warm, but it's beautiful. And
That's what wetsuits
so
are
many, exactly. And so many
Yeah.
friends from around the world are in town because it's been the Independent Film Award, the Independent Spirit Awards, the SAG Screen Actors Guild Award. Shout out to my friend Joe Barnes, who was nominated for being an actor in the Bridgerton ensemble.
God bless.
Ensemble. The Oscars are this weekend. Shout out to all the parties that are happening. Macro throws my favorite party of Oscar season. So shout out to Charles and Stacey
Yes.
King. Who we
Don't they do it
love.
at like SoFi? Don't they do it like at
No,
the
it's not that
Oh,
big.
it's not that
And
big.
now, no, it's not that big. It's like it was like 1,200 people last
Okay.
year,
Okay.
1,500 people, something like that. And then this year, it's actually very small. It's like 400 people.
Wow.
It's very hot ticket.
I like that.
Yeah. So, there's just like fun stuff happening all the time, which I get to do because I'm actually quite introverted. So it's like I put my big girl pants on and be a social butterfly for like a week, and then I'll see everyone for the year, basically. I like see everyone that I need to see for in this period of like 6 weeks of Oscars and just award season. And then otherwise I'm like back in my little nerdy bubble and cave and just like waddling to the ocean and reading books, not going to anyone's parties.
Waddling. Picturing Twig waddling in her wetsuit and her surfboard. That sounds so fun though.
It is fun.
When I worked at Funny or Die, I used to get to be a tourist at some of that stuff, and it was so fun. It was almost more fun to be a tourist, and I say tourist meaning my favorite human, and I will call him a mentor, although he would not love to be called that. But Mike Farah would say, going to an award show when you're not nominated is bullshit. He's like, only go to the award show when you're nominated because it means so much more when you're nominated. So if you're going to an award show and you're not nominated, you're just kind of like a tourist. And I was able to go to a few of them over the years, like Grammys, Emmys, and they're so fun. Even as a tourist, they're fun.
I know. But part of the thing is it's like, but there's a distinction between being a tourist and industry professional, right? Because it gets really like ego-y. And so I think because I'm still very much a tourist in Hollywood, even though I've been out here for a long time and I've been making things and working things, like I just don't get too tripped up about like what table I'm at or where I'm seated or who I'm next to or did I get invited into that thing or that thing? And people get really stressed about it. Like people get very upset and like there is a pecking order and like people are very, very focused and driven on that kind of thing. And like I don't care about any of that. So
well, it's because it's just sadly, it's the nature of human existence that, sadly, I will say, people live their whole lives in order to get these awards. Like they feel like these awards, like these bullshit awards mean anything. And they do mean something. Obviously, if you win an award, that means you're going to get more work and like you're going to get exposure. And clearly, it could potentially help you. But with that said, you're totally right. Like it's become so important. And the people that take it so seriously are not even the people nominated. It's like the ecosystems around. It's like the publicists and the managers
yeah.
and the agents. You know, it's not even the person doing the thing that take it so seriously, you know?
Yeah. Definitely. And it exists in every industry. Like it's all over politics too. And I was much more susceptible to it when I was in politics and was just like younger and just you think these things matter. You think
Mm-hmm.
your title matters. You think all this and it's just like none of that actually. You get older and more senior and you realize like how little any of that stuff matters in the grand scheme of things and that it's all just like insecurity or ego. And doesn't actually mean all that much. So, but I like putting on fancy dresses and
I know. You guys look great. I saw you guys at the SAG Awards. You guys were
yeah.
crushing it, just crushing it. How are you feeling about the Oscars this weekend? Before we get into some dark, end times of the state of our democracy, how are you feeling about the Oscars? Are you pulling for anyone or any film? Because this year's been weird, in my humble
Yeah.
opinion. there's no
I
clear,
yeah,
there's no
I still
clear
haven't
front runner.
seen and I still haven't seen a couple of them. Like I haven't seen The Brutalist because it's 3 hours long and it's just
Yeah,
like, oh my God, I can't. Um sorry. I know I'm supposed to be more sophisticated than that,
I
but
know. You're such an
mm,
LA industry head. You should love those
no,
comparisons,
I
you
know,
know?
I know. I'm just not. And so I don't know. I really liked the Bob Dylan biopic. I thought it was really cool and great. I loved Conclave, but I'm a sucker for a process film. So
Same.
like anything that is explaining to me how a process works, like I find people conclaves, one might be coming up.
I know
Godspeed
it's good
to
timing. They
Pope
really nailed the
Francis,
timing.
you know? Ooh. But I love like Spotlight. Like I love those types
Yeah,
of that
yeah.
was a really interesting pairing I just made. But those types of films that follow,
Freudian, just or not. What is it? It's just it's a
it is
great
probably a
pairing.
little,
Great
yeah,
pairing.
tricky. Um, but so I love films like that. I have not seen Anora either. I don't know, a hot take. I think it's weird that the dude that director has written now made two films about sex workers from a woman's perspective when he, to my knowledge, does not know what that experience is.
Who knows? I
Um,
mean, wait, you're casting judgments. Maybe he does.
I am. Maybe he does. Maybe he
Who knows?
does. Maybe he does.
Who knows?
Um,
We don't know. We don't know what he does in his
And in
spare
this
time.
era, none of that matters anymore. So,
Yeah,
so in this post Trump 2.0, post DEI moment, you
yeah.
actually don't have to have any lived experience to write whatever you want. Um, and then I loved Amelia Perez more so because it's
This
so strange and quirky and
I
like
was gonna say,
cross.
despite the criticism, despite the folks that are like, "What the fuck is this?" You were like,
Yeah.
"No, I love it. I love it."
Well, because here's the thing, the like hyper corporatization of film and TV and these massive conglomerates that are responsible for funding the vast majority of pop culture have become so risk averse, have become so
True.
algorithm driven, have become so IP dependent that it is extraordinarily difficult to get an original concept financed and produced and let alone made and then have it be successful and recognized and distributed. So what Jacques
True.
Audier, the director, has like managed to accomplish by getting this wacky film that is not easily explainable, produced, financed, and he's a legendary director. I've loved a lot of his work before. Um, is so spectacular and rewarding to someone like me who just doesn't want who doesn't want like I don't know, the Teddy Grahams 5. Like, can we just like go back? Like, can there be some original stuff? So from that perspective, it's so audacious and ambitious. And the fact that he pulled it off and made this really quirky, strange film, I think is incredible. And I think that's what so many people are responding to more so than all the controversy and so much of the backlash I think people are just like, if you are in this industry, it is so
Yeah.
obvious how
Yeah.
impossible it would have been to get this film made. So I think he's just getting respect for that, if not for like some of the more questionable elements of the plot and or the stars and or commentary from both said director and the stars.
I think what you and I, or at least for me, I love about the Oscars is that it is ultimately a campaign, right? And
Totally.
there are narratives and there are strategies and there's a lot of money on the line and there are a lot of careers on the line and there are a lot of influences, corporate, personal, media. Like there's just so much happening in an Oscars race, you know? And I think that the idea of the Oscar campaign, Harvey Weinstein was almost like the architect of like the Oscars campaign. And so now it's almost viewed very, well, obviously very negatively because of Harvey's downfall. But it's interesting this year because I felt like I feel like Amelia Perez, if Amelia Perez as a movie was a political candidate, Amelia Perez like just full on lost in a disastrous tweet slash maybe it's a debate, who knows, scandal, because I felt like the stock was rising so high. And again, this is someone as an outsider living in DC, with people talking glowingly about Amelia Perez. And then I almost want to say overnight, the whole narrative shifted. And that doesn't happen magically. You know what I mean? Like,
It's the John Edwards.
yeah.
The John Edwards of the Oscar
That
campaign.
doesn't just happen. You know what I mean? Like, there were definitely people who were trying to take down Amelia Perez. There's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. And by the way, likewise, I'm sure Amelia Perez's people were trying to take down Honora. And so I like that part of the Oscars race. I think that that's compelling. I also like the individual part of the race too, and how Chalamet is like at the top of my list right now as just crushing it. But he won the SAG award. And
He
got
won the
on
SAG
stage.
award. And if he wins the Oscar, he'll be the youngest.
Yes.
He'll be the youngest actor to do it, beating Adrian Brody by a couple months, who he's nominated against, who's the star of The Brutalist.
I think Chalamet is going to win. You know why? Has
why?
Oscars voting closed already?
I think so. I think it closed on Sunday.
Closed on Sunday. When was the SAG Awards? Was it before the SAG Awards?
Sunday. Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm not an Oscar voter, so I don't know.
I just fucking love Chalamet's speech.
Yeah.
It was such a great, like, I want to fucking win. Like, in my opinion, like, that speech to me was like, I want to win the Oscar. I'm fucking here for it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm here. I want to be one of the greats. You know? It was great.
It closed. Oscars voting ended on the 18th. So well before that.
All right.
Yeah, I respect that. I respect that thing. And I think I loved the speech too. It played in the room pretty well. I mean, people can be a little cringy about those things, but I actually think, because it's also part of it's also just stating the obvious. It's like, shit, Timmy. Like, of course. But
you just played Bob Dylan in a biopic and sang the music, you know? It's great.
Should we get into some of the politics? Give the people what they came for? No, it's just not worth talking about it.
Let's just end it.
Let's go through some of the technical awards. So best lighting, best makeup, best production design, best cinematography, sound design, special effects getting added. Editing, of course.
Thoughts on sound design. A lot of thoughts on sound design.
Yeah.
No, let's do it. Well, okay.
I get it. Listen, we're avoiding the realities out here in LA pretty hard. So like, I'm for it.
You get to. So here's the difference. So I asked you, I'll ask you, and you gave me the perfect answer, and I'm very jealous of your answer. I'm so jealous of your answer because I don't get to escape it. I just
Yeah.
don't. And
Yeah. What's the vibe like in DC?
it's so bad. It's really, 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 really bad. I don't know how many reallys I said.
Yeah, because so many. Tell me more.
It's really bad. I went to a bar a couple days ago, and the bartender started getting emotional, telling us how 30 USAID workers had their going away party at that bar. It was at the Smith downtown, and she started getting emotional about it because she was like overhearing the conversation I was having. I mean, it's just, the one thing about DC is this is a town that believes in public service.
Yeah.
Like, that's why you come.
Yeah.
People go to LA because they believe in art. People
Yeah.
come to DC because they believe that they can make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And they believe they can make the world a better place not through becoming rich. You don't
Yeah.
come to DC to get rich. It's the fucking
No.
opposite. So, yeah, it's been
Unless
rough.
you're Elon.
Well, he was already rich. I mean, he comes to DC
Fair.
now.
He's
after
gotten a
being
lot
rich.
richer.
He's gotten a
Gotten
good
a
point.
lot
Oh,
richer. A
very,
lot
very good
richer.
point. Very, very good point. Well, when you're rich and you come to DC, you're right. You get richer. Very good point. The people that know how to play their cards right. No, it's been tough, Twig. It's been really tough. I've been trying to take mental health breaks, not read the news in the midst of all of this. I think I told you on a previous pod, I'm getting into quantum listening. I'm getting into meditation. Like, it's that rough for people who believe that government can be a force for good in American people's lives. And I think the thing that's most disappointing in this moment is how easily, and we're only a month in. Are we a month in yet? A month and a half in?
A month and a week. 5
A month
weeks.
and a week. I think the thing that's been most disheartening has been how easily captured all of this has become. I think that's the hardest part. I think that, no one wants to believe that their purpose and their life's work just doesn't matter. And I think that there are already tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, millions, who feel that way,
Yeah.
And that's tough. That's just really tough. So, I am still heartened by just everyday people. I've just been following all of these beautiful humans, like these park rangers, these fucking park rangers. There's something about the uniform, Twig, just the hat, the just fucking
That.
the hat
Nice.
and they're in the mountains and they're laying out like what they do. They test the water, they track the tides, they clear the trails. They make like $50,000 a year. You know what I mean? Like, no federal government's budget is being balanced off of, Joe the park ranger.
Yeah.
And hearing their just like heartfelt desperation. I mean, a lot of these posts are desperate posts of what the fuck? What do we do? And I think that that's the piece that, which we can get into, where Democrats, you put it perfectly. To the victor go the spoils. Like you said it last week when I was getting all fired up. It's like, Democrats need to be doing some shit. And you're like, yeah, Brad, this is what happens when you win elections, And so that's where we're at. I mean, we're at a place where the federal government, as we know it, as it has been constituted for 100 or so years, modern day government,
Yeah.
it will no longer exist, and we'll have to
Post
either
New
rebuild
Deal.
it. Yeah, post New Deal, like it's gone. It's already fundamentally gone, in my humble opinion, because there hasn't been a real public backlash, media
Yeah,
backlash,
not
corporate
yet.
backlash.
Not yet. I mean, I think I feel even over the course of the last week, I feel like people are starting to get their sea legs a little bit around
Okay.
how to talk about everything that's happening. And I think there is an opportunity again, the nationalization of the news, the kind of influencer culture, the macro influencer culture has obscured and skewed our ability to interpret what's happening on the ground. And I think that people are starting to figure out, you put someone into a corner, you back someone into a corner, and then they're going to act like they're backed into a corner. And I think
Yeah.
that as we're starting to see individuals have to live out the consequences of so many of these things, they're starting to share their stories, and they all have a platform in their pocket. And it might, as we've said over and over and over again, only have 50, 100, 200, a couple thousand followers, but that's meaningful if that's a personal touch from someone. And I
Yes.
think if that's happening across the board and people are connecting the dots between what happened and or what the election result was, what the consequences of them being fired are, and the work or the services that will no longer get done um, actually means, that's going to be really interesting. I mean, I think one of the things that the media is doing, and I get why they're doing it from like a sales and salaciousness perspective, but is also surfacing these stories. It's like people who voted for Trump who are then surprised that he did exactly what he said he would do because they didn't think it would apply to them. So like
Ugh.
that's one narrative that's getting sent out a lot. Another, though, is people who are kind of taking hook, line, and sinker the Trump narrative, which is change requires sacrifice. And so whether they're farmers in the Midwest or they're government workers or whatever, people who are getting laid off, people who are getting squeezed, people who are concerned about some of the choices that he's making are still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And you're seeing that narrative kind of surfaced a lot.
Yeah.
So I think as like Congress is trying to figure out what they're doing, I know they're meeting with influencers and like trying to figure out how the internet works, like great.
I'm so glad that's happening. That's
Yeah,
great.
would have been
That's
great a couple
so,
years ago, but fine. We're here now.
it's
But
never too late.
but I think that sort of if there is a way to kind of build as much infrastructure as possible around the sort of micro level, this is what like me being fired means X for you.
Yeah.
Like if we can
Yeah.
get some of that storytelling happening, we don't need to track it. It doesn't need to make national news. We just need to like be supporting that in certain congressional districts and certain pockets around the country where Democrats have lost ground. I think that could be a really effective strategy. And I don't know that we have the infrastructure for that, but I think that like we are being delivered a lot of gifts in this moment. And
Agreed.
it's just, we're so focused on the national big things and these massive big swings that I think we're missing a lot of what could possibly be built. Um, but I don't know.
I
I
agree.
mean,
I agree with all that. I didn't mean to be a Debbie Downer to start the pod. I agree with that because I've seen before we started recording, we're talking about our guy Cory Booker, who is my hometown mayor, now senator, and Cory has been so good. And this is something that I think all these members of Congress should do, and just giving his social media handles to everyday people. Like that's what he's doing. He's just posting.
yeah,
Speaking of that park ranger I mentioned, I saw that video because Cory just posted that kid's video
yeah,
on his feed that has millions of followers, right?
yeah,
And so Cory's been so good. Speaking of another New Jersey human, Andy Kim has been so good at like localizing what this means for New Jerseyans, localizing what this budget resolution pass means for New Jerseyans. So you're right. I think that it's easy to stay down or depressed when you do rely on legacy media, right? But when you start to see real conversations or real things moving in platforms that you and I have said that we need to be investing more in, like all of that is just happening organically. That's not coming from the Democratic Party. That's just coming from real people whose lives have been totally upended, totally ruined in some cases for no good reason. Because Elon Musk likes to be a meme and he likes to go on stage with a fucking chainsaw and he thinks that that's fun. You know, like that's the dichotomy right now confronting the American people.
So boring.
It's so boring. It's not even boring. It's just so lame. That's the other thing.
Those are interchangeable in my mind.
It's just
those are completely
so
interchangeable.
Cringe. Like, you know that Elon Musk, when he goes on stage at CPAC, is imagining himself as Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man. Like, he's imagining himself as a real life Tony Stark. And
he's desperate to be funny. He wants to be funny so bad. He's
just so sad. Like, it's all of it is so sad, in my humble opinion, because this man can do anything with that wealth. This man can do and change so many lives for the better with this wealth. And
he doesn't care.
Just doesn't fucking care.
He can't even be nice to his own children. Like, he doesn't care.
He walks away from his 3-year-old son, which is incredible content. The last thing I'll say about the DOGE, because I'm looking at our outline, is the content. Like, I'm curious what your thoughts are. We had talked about how Trump relied on Twitter to be this content machine in his first term. And now the content machine is weirdly not Twitter. It's policy. Like, it's you know, I don't know who got in his ear, clearly the Project 2025 folks, but like no one gives a shit about Trump's tweets on Truth Social anymore. You know, like we've gone up a level, and as we've discussed, like our sort of ecosystem of content, it's very hard to push back against content that affects millions and millions and millions of people's lives, you know?
I think there's a couple different things happening, though. I think that, one, we've all been down regulated to like the salaciousness of his tweets, right? So the breathlessness with which his tweets were covered in his first term, he's not going to tweet anything that surprises anyone anymore.
Sure.
And so it's just sort of like we're adjusted to it. It's just we know it's par for the course, and who cares? So I think there's that. I think the one tweet that broke through, at least to me, or that I seemed like, from what I could tell, broke through in the kind of media echoes chamber, whatever I'm trying to say, media ecosystem, was the King tweet. And I think I think one of the things that we're not quite caught up to yet, if this is what's actually happening, but my suspicion is, and this relates to DOGE, is that Trump is actually attempting to set himself up in a king-like scenario, in that a king is not directly responsible for governing, right? Like, a king just gets to lord around and fly his plane around Daytona,
sure,
and go to the Super Bowl and like do the pomp and circumstance and be the sort of figurehead and cut ribbons and take credit for things and wear ermine. And then you have the sort of Cromwell, you have Henry VIII, and then you have Cromwell, and Cromwell's actually revolutionizing government and is this tactician and is the person who's responsible for actually the business of state. And that is Elon, and that is DOGE, right? So Trump has fully surrendered whatever ego I think he had attached to being considered a competent president in his first administration, which he failed at, right? And is now like, I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm not like a government operator. I am a symbol. I am a king, and I
Yeah.
play purely a symbolic role in representing what the future and what the vision and what the values and what the character of this country is, as opposed to like getting my hands dirty with any sort of policy. And like
Yeah.
I'm allowing other people to do that, and I think he's playing on the really kind of classic American, but I think probably just like Western or just maybe just human um cognitive bias, where people who are really, really smart about one thing, we tend to think are smart and good about everything. So
Right.
Elon seems like he might be a engineering genius. I don't even know enough to know if that's true. But we have allowed whatever genius that Elon has a degree of transference into all realms of life, and everything he does with very little scrutiny. There's nothing to suggest that he is a genius as it relates to like government systems or operations or civil society or publishing or Twitter tech, like none of that, right? And yet, we widely defer to him, and we do that across the board, right? We do that with all sorts of people. Like, why anyone gave a single damn about Kanye West's political opinions, but like because he's a musical genius, we then listen to anything he has to say about fashion. He made the ugliest shoes ever, and like think that he gets to be a genius across the board. So I think that Trump is very much just relaxing into this posture of like, I am a symbol, I mean more than any individual policy. And like, I'm not even like, I'm bringing Elon onto my 60 Minutes interview. Elon's in the cabinet meeting. Like, Elon's running this thing. I'm
Elon's in the cabinet
presiding.
meeting. Elon's in the cabinet meeting, standing up and like briefing the fucking cabinet. I mean, like,
Yeah.
just looking like a complete buffoon, wearing a
I don't know if that's
t-shirt.
what's happening.
I mean, for my opinion,
Yeah.
like, again, because he's up there trying to explain all of the mistakes that he was making. I'm not sure if you saw the footage of that cabinet meeting, but he was like, oh yeah, we messed up some things and we fired some people we didn't want to fire, and we didn't do this and we didn't do that. Um, yeah, you're right. I mean, all of that is right, but I wonder, I am more concerned in this moment than I've ever been, partly because of what you're describing. Because I think that what you found 4 years ago, or I should say 8 years ago, is a president who um, was not at all curious or interested in fundamentally changing government at all. He loved the idea of being powerful. He loved the toys. He loved the idea that he was the most powerful person in the world or in the country. But he didn't really know what that meant. He didn't even know the levers. I mean, I like
Right. They
Trump
didn't.
was,
I think they were interested in fundamentally changing government between Bannon, Stephen Miller,
yeah,
Trump, like they didn't know how to do it.
they
And
weren't
they had
ready.
checks within their own party that were not
Yes,
interested in radically changing democratic priorities and policy or like norms. And this time, all those people have been cowed. All of those people
yes,
are cowards. Like anyone
yes.
who opposed him is gone, and somebody in the meantime in the 8 years has like figured out the massive opportunities for like rapacious personal gain that
Yes.
come from doing all this stuff.
Yes, and it's a perfect Venn diagram for Elon and Trump. Like, they're a perfect team if you think about it,
Yeah.
right? Because you have Trump, who of course is just as greedy as Elon Musk, but at this point in his life, like, I mean, my man, I think is wearing diapers. I'm not sure if you've seen this conspiracy theory, but like, he he's an old person on his way out the door. He's a mess. He is on, as Elon is, just like on all kinds of uppers to just keep himself going. This is not a serious person when it comes to policy. Like, for him to sit down and read
Mm-mm.
OMB, like to
Oh,
read
well,
the
that doesn't happen.
architecture of VOT from Project 2025, to be like, oh, this is how we're fundamentally going to change OMB. Here's how we're going to change employee statuses. This is how we're going to like make sure that anyone who is not your person is out of federal government, where they're just out. Trump says, to your point, yes, go do that, right? And now the person that goes and does that is Elon Musk, who's not an American citizen, who is someone who has, in my humble opinion, stolen billions and billions of dollars from the federal government. Like, there's no other way to put it. I mean, now that you're looking back on what he is now doing, the amount of money that Elon Musk has extracted from American taxpayers through SpaceX and Tesla, he's not even an American citizen. And then for that same person to then be the architect of the destruction of the federal government is insane.
It's wild.
Absolutely insane. If you think about it, it's insane. And in a way, it's almost, it makes perfect sense to him. If you think about it, like if we were like writing a Marvel movie, like a Lex Luthor style shit, this motherfucker became the richest human in the world because he extracted, because of the way our federal government works. If you're a very rich person, very rich corporation, you don't have to pay any taxes. You can just like fucking extract it out of the American taxpayer. He sucked all of this out of our fucking country, and there's nothing left. There's nothing left for any of his competitors. There's nothing left for any other corporations. He just like, we're done with it. We're done with it. We don't need it anymore. And that's what you saw with the budget that just passed yesterday or 2 days ago.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
I mean,
unbelievable.
But I think this goes to another point, which is like, who is doing a good job? Who should we be platforming and cheering on and supporting, and either like sending money or sending likes or sending attention to? Obviously, President Crockett, DNC chair, and President Crockett.
in our alternate universe, we're
in an alternate universe. All right. I had been saying for months that she should be and like she's the only person breaking through. Obviously, yesterday had quite a great interaction when someone was a reporter asked her what she would say if she could speak directly to Elon Musk, and she gave a really zero hesitation. Like on site was just like F off. It was amazing. My mother listened, so I'll not give you the full recap.
It
spectacular.
Was chef's kiss. It was, I think, again, speaking of presentations that Emerson Collective should be sending people, that should be a clip that they should send people. It's so good. So good.
And then also I watched an interview, and it was funny. A friend of mine had been telling me how great the senator was for a long time, and I was sort of like, yeah, no, I get it. He's good. But Chris Murphy really has been blowing me away for the last few weeks. Like, I think he's really spectacular and fantastic, and it's like, get him out in the mix. Like, he should be everywhere. He should be doing everything. And I think what I loved so much about him is it's really easy to capture people's attention for a short little snippet, but it's actually really difficult, especially it seems for elected officials these days, which is a real problem, to like maintain that over the course of a 45 to hour long interview without either A, being dry, professorial, or B, like kind of falling apart in your ability to be like that sort of authentic and have clear answers that you've obviously thought about, but that weren't written for you. And he has just been spectacular in kind of interviews across the board. Anand Girdas did a really great interview with him that everyone should watch on his Substack, the Ink. INK, but he's now top of my list. So it was obviously AOC, obviously Jasmine Crockett, and then now it's Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Just like my G. I get it. I'm on board.
I'm gonna put Corey up there too
Corey.
because of the way he's been leveraging his very large followings to just give his accounts to everyday people. I think that's so smart. I think that's what the DNC should be doing, in my humble opinion. I was at the DNC Instagram. They're still posting Kamala shit. They still posted Kamala shit this week. And I love Kamala Harris. She's incredible. But like, what are we doing here? Like, post the park ranger, post the VA hotline operator, post these young people, these scientists that need NIH funding. Like, how are you not posting every single day? It's so bad. I'm gonna keep clipping this too, because I think we said some shit about the graphic, and already I think, like, again, it's not our doing, but maybe 4 days later, Malcolm Kenyatta made a video that went on the DNC thing. So we'll clip this again, guys. You're not posting enough. You're not posting enough.
Yeah.
Post everyday people. Don't, and I know you're worried about, oh, we got to vet them, we have to do this, that, and the other.
No, you really don't.
You
what
really
are you talking
don't.
about? In what world? In what
you
world?
You really don't.
In what
post
world,
the park
guys?
ranger. Post the park ranger. Post the scientist. Like, just do it every day. Volume.
Yeah.
Bro. Volume.
It's so true. It's so true. Give people something to work with. Give people something to work with.
Bad. It's so bad, especially when in our outline Twig, MSNBC just it was like, you're a Game of Thrones fan. It's like the
Red wedding.
Yeah, it's like the Red Wedding.
Bro.
The MSNBC
savage.
Red Wedding. It was. Yeah. That was not expected. We have friends that work at MSNBC, and we expected some shakeup, but I did not expect that kind of a shakeup where you had Joy, you had Alex Wagner, Katie Fang, Eamon, just whoop, gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
Gone. I mean, that'll be the equivalent if Fox News just like leveled 6 of their anchors. People will be like, what? What is going on here?
Okay, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
We know that their ratings tanked. Doesn't matter that MSNBC makes a quote unquote liberal product. That is a business. That is a corporation that does not care about social good. They care about whether or not they are making money, and whether or not they are profitable, and whether or not they're getting the highest ad rates that they possibly can for the lowest production cost. And so if you see anchors and you've seen press that their numbers are way down, like, you should anticipate, you should expect, if you're following any of the media news, it shouldn't be surprising. Is it fair? No. Was it the most strategic way of doing it? Obviously not, because you had your number one talent in the form of Rachel Maddow come out and absolutely eviscerate the new president of MSNBC and the manner in which she did this. And so, not by name, but really,
practically by name. It was brutal. I will forever stand Rachel Maddow for that. I thought that was such a G, like, bulletproof. You know, when people have, like, sometimes what do they say? It's like fuck you money, but it's not even fuck you money with Maddow. It's fuck you power to do something like that. You know?
Yeah.
Because they can't fire Rachel Maddow. Like, are you kidding me?
And she'd be like, cool, I've been trying to quit for years. Please fire me. I have been trying to quit, y'all, and get out of here. But so she's been put in charge of, like, redoing the new strategy. They're going to have to trim the fat. They're going to have to build and probably put a lot of resources into how they're going to do their own news gathering, because they're not going to be able to rely on the broader sort of NBC ecosystem. And so I'm not surprised that there have been these massive shakeups. I am so surprised that it was so poorly handled in the internal politics of it so poorly done that your
Yes.
number one talent just smokes you on live television
Yes.
for like how you're treating the staff, how you're treating the production team, how you treated the anchors, who you're getting rid of, the fact that they all happen to be women of color or people of
Yes.
color, the like just
Mostly women of color.
mostly
Yeah.
women, but just
Yeah.
like boom, 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 boom. I was watching, it's like, oh, she's still going. Oh my God. If I am Rebecca, I am under my desk.
Well, and also the way that she called into the communities that have been formed. So she's also doing this beautiful thing of like almost speaking to the audience directly that she
Yeah.
knows are going to be very upset about this, particularly Black women in the wake of Joy Reid being fired. Win with Black Women did this Zoom. I mean, they like popped out, like 100,000 people watched it on YouTube simultaneously. Just really bad. Like I was trying to equate it to sports terms. I don't think it's as bad as the Luka trade. The Luka trade was, let's just be clear. Like,
Is it really because he drinks too much and smokes too much hookah? Is
is
that
that why?
true?
Is that why they traded him? No, I
That's
think it's a
what's
lot
one of
more.
the
I think it's a lot more sinister than that. I think that it's actually Dallas wants to move to Vegas, and this is straight out of like a movie plot that they want to tank. And Luka is not only one of the best NBA stars in like, I mean, he's a 5-time All NBA
yeah.
star, like MVP. He's so young, so they know that however long they have Luka, they are going to be good. And the other thing
Yeah.
about Luka is he doesn't give a fuck about any of them. He doesn't give a fuck about the owner. Doesn't give a fuck about the GM. And he's going to do what he's going to do, and he's going to constantly win. And for them, they're like, we actually want to move. I think that this is full on the plot of Major League, the incredible 1990s film starring Tom Berenger and Rene Russo. If anyone wants to know why they traded Luka, just watch that film. And so, but Rebecca Cutler,
It's also a little Ted Lasso-y then, right? Isn't that the
yeah,
plot
well,
of Ted
yes,
Lasso
well,
or something like that?
Ted Lasso also stole that plot from Major League. Let's
From
just
Major.
be
Oh, sorry. Go to
let's
the
just be
source.
real.
I
Let's be
haven't
real about
watched a
Major League.
ton of Ted Lasso as much as I love my buddy.
Yeah, no, it's the same. It's
Vegas.
essentially the same plot, but Cutler doing this, I'm so intrigued by what she thought was going to happen after, much like the Luka trade. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I
it's
know.
like what? Well, like, okay, you're going to trade away not only your top player, a like generational talent that everyone loves. Like everyone loves Luka. No one doesn't like Luka. You know what I mean? Like he's beloved. He's so great. And you're just going to trade him away. And likewise, MSNBC, the people that watch MSNBC fucking love MSNBC. These are diehards, you know?
Yeah.
And so
Well, are they though? Because are they though? To be perfectly honest, because Joy Reid's numbers went in half from the election, and I know that that's not necessarily her fault. It's
true,
not because of her performance.
true.
Um,
That was her baseline.
but
I think that's the baseline, is what I'm saying.
okay,
I
but
think
like
that, yeah, but no, it's a good
this
point.
is a commercial enterprise, right?
Yeah.
Like this is capitalism,
Yeah.
and so it's.
Yeah.
This is what that system does. And so I am not surprised. Is it fair? No, but is it the reality that she signed up for and that everyone
Yeah.
signed up for and they knew could happen at any moment? And like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm with you. The two things
I
that are
mean,
striking to me though was of course the Maddow of it all, like her giving that monologue. I
yeah.
mean, that was like a Shakespearean et tu brute. Like that was fucking
Yeah.
beautiful. That was number one. And number two, Joy was not even kept on as like anything.
Yeah.
Like she's off the network fully,
Yeah.
which is not the case for someone like Katie Fang. I mean, these are other folks who have like weekend shows, so I don't think you can compare it to that. Alex Wagner as well, who had the Madhouse spot, that nightly weekday spot. she's still a part of the MSNBC family, right? She's not fully off, so that'll be interesting
Did
to
Joy
see what that looks
say
like.
on the did Joy say on the call whether that was her choice? Did she want to stay on? Because she might have just said no.
It's a very good question. She did not say on the call. Twig and I talked about this. I joined the Zoom and watched in real time. You know, Tiffany Cross was on, Rashad Robinson was on, Angela Rye. I mean, people were very raw. People were very emotional about what this means in this moment, particularly for Black women, right? This has been, let's just be real, this has been a rough go for Black women for these last few months. And so I think that there's an overwhelming feeling that Joy was emotional. She cried. It's now been documented. It's like, you know, on Entertainment Weekly, and it's clipped. And I don't know who gave the video out to folks, but it's been clipped, and people are seeing her get really emotional about.
Yeah,
and I got
I've
a
seen
little
the
bit
clips.
emotional too. Like the part that is emotional for anyone who does any kind of work, and I would call journalism very close to public service, right? Joy was so emotional because she believed, and I believe too, that her work mattered and that her community mattered. And to be fired in this way, that's the part that I think Rachel took umbrage with. To be fired in this way is really fucked up
Yeah.
to a community that doesn't need even additional trauma this moment. You know what I mean? Like this is a we're afraid already, y'all. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
so
I'm not surprised that anyone got fired. I am surprised the manner in which they did it, you know? It's
I
just like
I
such
respect
liability.
that.
But you know what? In 6 months, when
I
they have
respect
new
that.
talent on for a fraction of what they were paying Joy, and they're pulling roughly the same numbers because
True.
the MSNBC is actually not super loyal to individual anchors, but is more loyal to the perspective that's offered by the platform. We'll see, right?
Very good point. Well, and I
If
think
new
that
talent pulls in a fraction of the audience, then we know that Rebecca was wrong. But we'll see. I don't know.
I think there's evidence that I think that there, yeah, I think the evidence is there to support what you are offering, which is that these time slots, the people in these time slots, and the format itself, right, is such that there's a pretty basic mean. And, you know, this is a really good segue to Stephen A, who's come up as a potential presidential candidate, right? Because when Stephen A went on ESPN, something shifted in ESPN's programming, which is when Stephen A was on the air, ratings went up. People
Yeah.
watched Stephen A. And ESPN is a very comparable, if you're thinking about it, it's 24-hour sports news. What can you really do with that? Here are the sports, here are the stats, here's who won, here's who lost. Obviously, intrigue, right? You can talk about who's what. Why did Luka get traded? Does he drink too much beer? Like, there's all these storylines. But for the most part, people watch ESPN, and the ratings go up when there are games, and the ratings go down when it's basic news. When Stephen A was on air, ratings went up. It just happened. Then he got his own shows. When Stephen A was hosting the show, the ratings went up.
Ratings went up.
And Stephen A became so valuable. They pay Stephen A, his last contract, $12 million a year. $12 million a year for him to just be on television and say stuff. That was how powerful Stephen A's voice was. At MSNBC, in my humble opinion, I don't know, other than Rachel Maddow, if you look at the ratings and you look at the numbers, we have very few examples other than Maddow that have that command. It's the reason why Alex got cut. It's the reason why Joy got cut. You know, it's to your point, it's numbers. What does Stephen A do though? This is the thing. Stephen A is provocateur number one. Stephen A says wild shit all the time. He wakes up every day.
You should go on MSNBC then. They should give you a show.
No. He wakes up every day. He drinks a hot cup of coffee, and he gets into it. He's a hothead. He gets in fights. He attacks people's personalities and characters. He attacks athletes. He is a circus. Stephen A is a circus. And Stephen A now wants to run for president. That's my segue. Look at us with the outline.
Does he actually want? Wait, did he say that in that interview?
Well, no. I mean,
people are just saying that because he's like this ubiquitous that's loved by everybody.
Yeah, I think it was a Puck poll or an Eckes poll of like, who are the people that you'd want to run for president? Mark Cuban was number 1. Stephen A. Smith was number 2. So of course, Stephen A. being Stephen A., he's
just like, yeah.
This is his dream, bro. This is his dream. And so he goes on Pod Save America. And
that's hilarious.
Have you not seen it yet, Twig? I should have sent it to you.
No, I don't watch really.
You don't really watch Pod Save. You're not a crooked fan.
Not. I wouldn't go that far. It's just
not in your. It's not in your media diet.
It's not in my rotation. They're not in my rotation.
Yeah. They're not traditionally in my diet either. But of course, when Stephen A. went on, I consumed that shit.
I will listen to that episode
instantly. But no, I mean, honestly, I thought the interview was a little. They're glazing him up so much. I don't know if they actually watch Stephen A. Smith.
Right.
And I love Tommy and I love these guys, but they're just like, you are amazing and you are so good. And I'm just like, well, let's
take it easy. Yeah. Cool down, fellas. Cool down.
Just calm down here.
Wipe yourselves off. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just not be this thirsty with Stephen A. But with that said, I think the things that were brought up that sound like maybe Stephen A. is a fan of Twig and Jenkins. I think we did ship out a hoodie to a Stephen Smith based in Los Angeles. It might be Stephen A. Who knows? I'm stuck with you. It's like, wait, what? Stephen A. a fan? No, but he sounded like us. He did. He sounded like us. He talked about how the Democrats are the worst brand in America. He talked about why aren't we doing more with sports? Why aren't we? He's like, I would be everywhere. Why are we not doing the Super Bowl? This makes no sense. Like, just talked in a way that you would expect Stephen A. Smith to talk. And I think that I don't think that he's going to become, obviously, the Democratic nominee for president, but I do think it's instructive for people that we are at such dire straits. And this is actually directly from Stephen A. He's like, things are this bad with the Democratic Party that people think that I can become nominee. And I was literally like, all snaps, like, he's full on correct. And I don't know. I'm curious what you think. I mean, it leads me in that zone of why aren't we seriously talking about Jon Stewart as a presidential nominee? Why are we not seriously talking about people who are not traditional, quote unquote, members of Congress or senators or politicians in this new world, in this new universe that we're in the bad timeline. You know what I mean? So why are we not sort of innovating in this new timeline to think about people that can be authentic storytellers, authentic communicators? And Stephen A., unfortunately, is viewed as such. And so people
because to a certain degree, you have to opt in, right? Like, you have to want to go to Iowa in January. You have to want to go to podunk towns across Ohio that, I love, but most people don't. Like, you have to want to go and put yourself out there in that way. And most of the people that we know are really good communicators because they've broken through and because they're household names
Yeah.
make a lot of money and have people that are really nice to them 99% of the time, neither of which thing happens when you are president. And
True.
most of these people have families that they don't want to put their families, like, it's actually not that. I mean, it's a great job. It's also a terrible job, or it's a great job with the worst interview process imaginable, right? And so many people are just like, why would I self-select? Like, I'm really rich and popular, and people are nice to me because I'm rich and
Yeah.
I'm popular. The
Yeah.
minute you declare that you are running for president, people are going to start either
Hating you.
hating you on site on principle for no
Yeah.
reason, or calling you dumb, calling your names. You're now going to have every intelligence community from around the world figuring out if you cheated on your husband, or you cheated on your wife, or if your kid does cocaine on the weekends,
Yeah.
or whatever. Like, every the sacrifice, the like, why would people do that? Like, there's like, my life's great. Why am I going to have
Yeah.
Iran poking around my text messages from 2002? You're like, what on earth are you talking about? Or my kids, or hacking into my kids' therapist files. Like, it's just like, why would you do? And all of that happens, right? All of that's real stuff. And so the sacrifice that people are, I mean, to want to do this when you are from a different sphere
Yeah.
is really rare. And especially
Unless,
in this era.
unless it's very likely that you're going to go to jail, then becoming president sounds really good.
Or if you have a pathological need to share all the dog shit you do anyway, like
Yeah.
our current president, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just like, I mean,
Yeah.
unless you have no shame, it's a tough gig. It's like, it's hard. And it puts real strain on individuals and their family. And there's just an easier way to be famous. So unless you care really passionately about public service or the country, or you truly believe that the best, highest use of your influence is in public service, then, like, so many people are just going to opt out. Like, why put yourself through that? And that's actually one of the chilling effects that everything DOGE is doing to the federal government. Like, it's going to lead to like, we already had such a problem recruiting super talented people to
I
come into
know.
government service anyway, because we
Yeah.
have so systematically undermined it as like a cultural value to be in public service, or service in general, right? Like, we under resource and underappreciate teachers and firefighters and all of these, and nurses and all of these people who keep in garbage collectors, like people, sanitation workers, like people who keep this, all of this working. We systematically have underappreciated them and pushed them out of the kind of central role that they deserve in society. And the same is true for government workers. And it's like, you can go, if you're really good at AI, you can go make so much cash where you're
Yeah.
not going to go to DOD, you're not going to go to state, you're not going to go
Yeah.
to the Department of the Interior. And that's, oh, shame. And the fact that they're going to be treated the way that they're treated now is even going to eliminate even more of that desirability for these jobs. And it's just like, that's a real bummer. Like, there's going to be such a brain drain out of government. And the single largest kind of government system in the world ever devised in the history of humanity is no longer going to be like the quote unquote best and brightest. Because they're like, wait, why would I go give up a bunch of cash to go somewhere where I'm going to be treated like an idiot? No.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Carville, I'm not sure if you saw his rant about
Some of it.
how he's like, let's just let them own it. Like, Democrats should just let them own it. Let the country fall apart, and let's not be attached. Let's not try to go down with the ship, right? Because there is conversation, like Ro Khanna, for instance. Ro, who's a friend and who's interesting and compelling, and I think is super ambitious, and obviously from Silicon Valley. So I think a lot of his constituents were intrigued or interested by Doge. And so Roe from the very beginning was kind of like, well, I'm into like government efficiency. I'm into like figuring out, how we can make, federal departments and agencies work better. He, I think, has willingly wanted to work with the Doge committee on finding any examples of waste, fraud, and abuse, yada, yada, yada. And there have been, sort of like small examples of Democratic members of Congress or senators saying, well, like, yeah, I can work with you on this. Even Bernie Sanders said, I can work with RFK Jr. on, pharmaceutical pricing, price gouging, Medicare fraud. Like, anytime we're talking about major corporations making a ton of money off of the American people, I'm with you. And Carville was like, no. This is their thing. Let them do it. Let them fuck everything up. Let them own it. We got to focus on the midterms and explaining to the American people the sort of disaster that they are wreaking, that they are wrecking. It's not bad advice. I do think that, which is a good segue to the thing that people are not talking enough on, right? Which is the very beautiful, depending on the way you look at it, marketing of Doge has been the focus on these are people that are DEI, they don't deserve it, they're bad, they're making so much money, yada, yada, yada. I think, in my opinion, the only people other than Bernie, Corey's done a very good job of like flipping that lens of no. Like, what's happening is you're hollowing out government in order to enrich people even more, right?
Yeah.
Elon Musk in particular, it's like a perfect example to have Elon Musk as the face of this, because he literally is enriching himself more. With a $400 million contract for Tesla. They just gave themselves a $400 million contract for there to be Tesla cars in the government fleet through GSA. This just happened last week. They also tried to change the contract and backdate it to make it look like Biden actually signed this contract, and it was complete bullshit and get called out by a whistleblower. So there's that piece. But then there's the other piece, which ties back to the MSNBC of it all, where Jeff Bezos earlier this week wrote a tweet. Was it a tweet or an email? I don't even know. Or it was
an email that got leaked.
An email that got leaked that effectively said that the Washington Post, which, for people that don't read political news like Twig and I every day, the Washington Post is obviously a local newspaper, but it is not. It's a national newspaper, because the Washington Post forever, since I've been alive, has been the paper of record for politics, because it's based in Washington, D.C. The best and the brightest political reporters come to Washington, D.C. to write about the work that we do, to write about people that are trying to make the country a better place. And Jeff Bezos, in one email to his employees, said that we are no longer in the business of that on our op-ed pages. They fired the current head of the op-ed pages. And
well, he was asked if he wanted to stay, and he opted not to stay.
Okay.
And basically they said that unless your op-ed defends free markets or personal liberties, then it's not for the Washington Post. They're going to let other people publish op-eds that are off of either of those two topics. And one of the things that I think I'm really curious about is like, is personal liberties going to mean giving your trans kid the medical care that they need? Like, is that what you mean by personal liberties? That's what I'm like, that's what he, like, if you wanted, it's your newspaper, again, to the victor goes the spoils. He bought this newspaper. It is his newspaper. Fine. That is the rules that we have explicitly or implicitly agreed to, or that we have been born into, right?
Yeah.
We are in a capitalist society. That's how this works. But if he wants to say personal liberties, like, let's hold him to that and figure out what that actually means. And it's like, I get
I
it.
like that.
I get it. It hurts the pockets of individual reporters who don't have a ton of options if we don't if the Washington Post loses its subscriber base. But like, sorry, if he is out here making a rag that does nothing but buoy this administration, then like unsubscribe. Like
I'm
don't
with
paint
you.
his fence. Sorry, I'm not, you know.
I'm with you on it. Well, I guess this brings up the larger question around what is the point of legacy media right now in our Lord's year of 2025, right? What I got in an argument with someone recently over the New York. They're just going on about the New York Times and getting a thing in the New York Times and like yeah, and I was just so flummoxed because I was like, who gives a fuck if it's in the New York Times?
I
It doesn't
know.
mean anything. It doesn't mean anything anymore. I know that we grew up and we're
Well,
older,
it
elder
depends on who you're
millennials.
trying to talk to.
Well, I
Like
mean to
when I
say, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, go.
It's like when I was writing my op-ed that was in the Rolling Stone, it like one of
Yeah.
the questions I was asking myself was like, who do I want to read this?
Yes. Good point.
And the New York Times is still super, super important and super, super valuable if you're trying to reach a particular audience, but it is not super valuable and important if you're trying to reach people who are like under the age of 40.
Yes. Well, that I guess that was my point, which is I think that we as Democrats we get so captured with this idea that what success looks like, right? Success looks like something about the work that you do in the New York Times. Success looks like, sadly in this town, success looks like a blurb in the Politico playbook. Success looks
Yeah.
like it's all of these very antiquated, basic ideas of doing a good job, you know? And let's just be real. It like, if we actually care, the things that you and I care about, which is moving culture, which is actually reaching people, which is like, having some kind of a response to the wreckage that is taking place with regards to American culture. Um, sure, New York Times is great. If you want to go New York Times, great. You should have like 100 different ideas. You should have.
Yeah.
You should be everywhere. You should be fucking everywhere. And the part that what you said last week that's been sticking with me, and it's volume. It's volume. It's like
Volume.
volume. It's like don't spend 3 months trying to get that one thing in the New York Times, and like
To be perfect.
that's going to solve it all. That's just not it. It's volume, 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 and it's the only way that we survive, to be honest. And the great news is we have, and I'll say it, like people are afraid of TikTok. I think TikTok is great. I think what TikTok has been doing, in my humble opinion, among young people and everyday people in continually educating and entertaining and inspiring people in this moment. Like, imagine if we had to rely on legacy media, right? We don't have to anymore. So I
I don't
am,
know, man. I think TikTok's probably a great idea, but not for humans. But I feel that way about all social media. I'm just like, I don't think our brains
I
are
felt
like
that way too.
capable of this stuff.
I'm not on TikTok as much as someone like Marina or some, like my sister-in-law, Reid, and other people. But I will say for like my sister-in-law, who is a doctor, right? And who runs a hospital system and who deals with right now all of these cuts and what that means. It's like her TikTok feed are nothing but, scientists and NIH, researchers and all these incredible people. And they are all communicating in real time to each other about what's happening. And so we're DC. The one thing I'll say about DC is that we are so interlinked with legacy media. It's like literally it's the way in which we are seen affirmed as a serious thing. It's like we're doing work, but we need to be like confirmed that the work that we're doing is great, right? And that marketplace of ideas used to be Twitter, which is the whole reason why Elon Musk bought it. Because all of these journalists, Twitter became the sort of water cooler for journalists, you know? And so what we have right now is first the hollowing out of that water cooler where journalists could be communicating and sharing stories and getting stories, and this like open marketplace of ideas, which has been completely wrought and fucking wrecked with X. And then now we have the sort of corporate capture of media itself, of sort of legacy media itself, where I don't know, bro. Like, I'm curious how you feel. Do you still read the New York Times and the Washington Post like every week? Because I don't.
I probably check both of them every day, but I don't
Every
read
day.
it. I don't read it as deeply as I used to, for sure. I used to like read it cover to cover,
Right.
like A1 to F10 or whatever, both of them for 2 decades, and I don't do that anymore. But yeah, I don't know. I think it, but again, it's sort of, I have accepted the reality of, if I'm trying to, I read with the intention of trying to know who's hearing what,
Yep.
in the same way that like people are like, oh, watch Fox News because you want to know what the other side is doing. It's like, I
Sure.
read the New York Times because I want to know what people of a certain variety in DC and New York and on the East Coast are thinking and talking about. And I guess there's a portion of that here. If I want to know what's going on in LA, I read the LA Times. If I want to know what's going on in the
Yeah.
Beltway, like I read the Washington Post, or I read Politico or Axios. Like I read with an intention around, not this is the information I'm getting, or like this is like I'm reading knowing that audience, that it's super segmented. I want this type of information, and so I'm going here, or I want to know how this is landing in this
Yeah.
sphere, and so I'm going here. If I want to know how this is reacting like in the culture, then you go on TikTok, then you go on Instagram, then you would go on X or Blue Sky. But so I've just adapted to that reality of like, that's just how media works, and there's no such thing as like a uniform or
Yes.
universally or even like objective take on things, and then if I want to know, basically, instead of reading like the New York Times or the Washington Post opinion columns, I would go to Substack. Like
Yeah.
that's where all my favorite thinkers are, and that's where my favorite writers are, and like that's where Adnan Girdas, that's where
Yeah.
Taylor Lorenz, like all of these people whose work I really admire and think about and that shape and inform are like checkpoints of how I want to internalize things or think about things are there. And so it just, instead of reading two newspapers and being done with it, I read like 30 different things at some point
Yes.
over the course of pretty much every day.
Yeah. I mean, you're where I'm at too. I don't read the New York Times and the Washington Post every day, but I read it every week, particularly specific articles. But
Yeah.
I think that I think that it's almost like when you and I, we didn't, it wasn't really even a debate. We were on the same page, but at the end of our last pod, we were like, the NFL is getting rid of the end racism shit. And I was like, that's some bullshit. And you're like, who gives a fuck? This Bezos thing affected me that way. I'm just like, yeah, of
Mm.
course.
Yeah, me too.
It didn't, it was not, you know what I mean? Like, of all the things to be, of all the things right now in this moment to be flummoxed by and aghast by and like want to go on a protest on March 1st to save the public parks or want to go here, want to go there. It was like Bezos just being like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, the opinion pages are now mine. And it's just my point of view now. I'm like,
He
yeah, okay,
pulled the
sure.
endorsement of Kamala Harris. He pulled the
Yeah,
endorsement of Kamala Harris. Like he's been interfering with the editorial pages for months and
for
months and
months
months.
now. Yeah,
Anyone who is surprised by this is not paying attention. And it's
yeah,
just like, you're not paying attention. Sorry.
yeah,
This shouldn't be
yeah.
surprising to you.
Yeah, and also, did I unsubscribe from the Washington Post? No, I didn't unsubscribe last time this happened
I
because
did. I did.
Helene Andrews Dyer is my favorite writer,
I
and she's
know. She's so
incredible,
good
and
though.
I
She can go
support
anywhere
her.
she wants.
That's true.
I I agree.
You did unsubscribe from the
I
post.
did unsubscribe. I ended up
Okay.
resubscribing like a little bee, but
Did you unsubscribe after Bezos? This latest?
after no.
Okay.
I think I locked in for like a year for $1 or something. So it's like that was actually like the upside of resubscribing
Oh,
is they
they're
gave
begging
me like
people to come back.
begging. And so it's just like it's basically free. I think it's literally like $3.99 for the year or something absurd. So but all the minute that year is up, it's out.
I mean, yeah,
um
I subscribe because here's the other part about this too. Because I'm curious what we're gonna do for correspondence dinner, Twig. That's coming around the
oh
corner.
my god, we got to figure that out.
We got
Yeah.
to figure that out because um, the New York Times, the Washington Post, you know, as much as we give them shit, my hometown paper, the Trenton Times, kaput, done, it's no longer exists. Like,
Oh yeah.
and it's gonna continue. You know, it's
Yeah.
just gonna continue. Like all of these institutions. When we talk about the crumbling nature of cable news, it's very much interlinked with just the crumbling nature of journalism
And writ large, yeah.
all over. So I do still support I still do support the Washington Post and the New York Times, not because of Bezos, but because of journalists like Helena Andrews Dyer and others. So, but it's a bummer. I hate that we're ending on this such a bummer of a note. Did we forget anything, Twig? What are you gonna go to an Oscars party? Oh, let's end on that. What does Oscars weekend look like in LA? What's going on? Are you
Yeah,
going to
I
some
mean, I
parties?
don't get invited to some of the fanciest ones, but like there's like the macro party tonight, which is cool. And then there's just
Yeah.
like corporate stuff. Ray is coming into town. She's going to the Deli Boys premiere for Hulu. That's
Oh,
also tonight. Yeah.
so fun.
Um, I don't know. I'll just be
So fun.
around. I'll be bopping. Went to this like social the Impact Lounge had an event yesterday that I was at. Let's just you just bop around, you know,
What is the
peacock a bit.
vibe? What's the vibe? Maybe close on this because this is a good way to close on culture. We haven't done a good culture check-in
You should.
in this moment. What's the overall vibe right now among artists? I mean, it's from what
I
I'm
mean,
hearing.
Jane Fonda gave an amazing, it's
Yeah,
been crickets. It
yeah,
has been crickets. People have like the resistance is not present in Hollywood. It is like Paramount came out this morning and said that they are ending their DE&I programming. Like it
wow,
has been, yeah, it was owned by Sherry Redstone. They're trying to get they're trying to get a major deal to go through by selling it to
right.
Homeboy. They think it'll go through because they're all friends with Donald Trump, but like who knows? And so everyone is kowtowing to the president. Disney's paying all the fine, like everyone's doing all the things. Amazon buying Melania's doc for $40 million.
I saw that.
Disney is giving $20 million to the president, to the Trump library or whatever, like all of this stuff. Everyone's capitulating in some way, shape, or form. And so you actors and writers and directors who are reliant on these massive media companies to butter their bread are falling in line and are also being really quiet. And Jane Fonda came up at the SAG Awards, and if anyone hasn't seen it, I would encourage you to go watch it. She was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, and she just was like, "Guys, like, where have some stones. Like, let's. This is an outrage, and you should be outraged, and you should say
Mm,
so. And woke, all that woke means is that you give a damn about other people, and like quit letting them bully us around, and
yes,
like make us
yes.
feel bad for our values."
Oh,
And it was really powerful, and she looks amazing,
she's the
so
best.
kudos to her. um but yeah, I mean, it's been really really quiet, and
People are afraid.
But I think it's been quiet across the board, right? I
Yeah.
think that I think the quote unquote resistance or the opposition has been quiet across the board. People haven't quite figured out how or if they want to turn up for it. And so but I think it's going to start to coalesce. I think people are getting their sea legs or getting their feet back out underneath them. But it's a pretty chill vibe.
Oh man, that's yeah, that's
Pretty
tough to
much
hear.
bummer.
It's tough to hear. I do, I do wonder, you know, what what kind of moments or what's the sort of the tinder to the flame. You know what I mean? Like, what are these moments that create momentum for people to have the audacity or the courage to say some shit? Because you're right. I also, from what I'm hearing too, Hollywood was already in a really rough state before the fire for a variety of reasons, like recovering from COVID and like going back into production. The wildfires is also devastating for a number of different reasons. And so, not to mention AI and,
You know what
these,
I actually think it is, though?
what do you
I
think
think
it
that's
is?
right. I think it's absolutely right that like the path towards being able to provide for yourself and like make good money in this business has narrowed really
It's narrowed.
consistently over the
Yeah.
course of the last decade. And so that's like there's a material reality to so many people, but I think it's Gaza. What
Yeah.
like
True.
the
True.
massive division and the consequences that we have seen in Hollywood around Israel Palestine stuff and the way that
Very good
people were
point.
dropped by their agencies, people were fired, people were for speaking too aggressively one way or the other, like had such a chilling effect on the willingness of people to talk about politics at all
At all.
that and like
Yeah.
it was people were like, "Oh, but I wouldn't be fired. Like WME won't drop me. CA won't drop me if I express an opinion." Well, like, yeah, they
They
will.
did.
And we saw that and like people didn't get jobs and people got fired from jobs and so for like across the board, like there was just it was very, very tense and political out here. And I think people it had a real chilling effect on this moment of like people
Very
have
good
been
point.
fired for less. And so I think that's so fresh in everyone's mind that in this moment there and also like Trump is doing a really good job of spinning this narrative that like he had a mandate and he won in a landslide and everyone supports him and everyone voted for him and all these stars have fallen in line and Snoop's at the inauguration and Nelly's at the inauguration and Floyd Mayweather's out here talking about Trump and so there's also this sense that there was this massive sort of backlash to him and he was a cultural outcast in 2016. That is not what is happening now. And so people are like, that's my fan base. If Snoop represents any portion of my fan base, if like these guys are indicators of where people on the street are and where your average consumer is, then like I'm staying away from it.
Yeah. You're saying the quiet part out loud that no one wants to bring up, which is the Gaza of it all. You're right. Because the Gaza of it all also started during the campaign itself, which was, and I was hearing directly from folks, this is from the other side, which is artists and activists, artists who consider themselves activists, who weren't pro Kamala because of Gaza. And then on the flip, to your point, actors who were public about Gaza who lost jobs. So it was going in both.
Yeah.
It was going in both directions, right? And right now, there's this weird moment, and I think that I would love for us to do an episode on this, but I think it would be, in the words of Will Ferrell, very provocative, and no one would know what it would mean. But like, I think that we should try to unpack what's happening right now in Gaza. Elon Musk doing Nazi salutes, Steve Bannon doing Nazi
Oh,
salutes,
It's
It's insane.
unbelievable. And then trying to say that they're Roman salutes,
It's
like,
absolutely insane. And
oh my God.
and you would think, again, like, this is the thing. I think you and I talked about this a few podcasts ago. Like, you would think this is the moment where, okay, y'all, we've been this war, this war in the Middle East. It's complicated in a number of different ways. Both sides think that they're David in a David v. Goliath situation. Too many lives have been lost. Too many bombs have been dropped. Too many people have been kidnapped and killed and held hostage. It's just fucking disastrous on both sides. Can we both agree that we hate Nazis, though? Is that something that we can both agree on? Can we do that? Because I think that that's the whole game, you know? And I
Yeah, it
think,
turns out we can't, bro.
but I think we can. I think we can. I think that the thing is, we have lost that muscle, right? I think there are organizations like Ben the Ark, this incredible Jewish organization that every day is putting out incredible content that is pulling in Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Arab, you know, atheists, like pulling everyone together. That is not inconsistent, I think, with either side wanting to see each other's side's humanity. And it's such a chilling effect. You're right. I think you're right. Because I think if someone is speaking out, if I'm an actor and I want a thing and I speak out and then I go do an interview after and I get a question on Gaza, do you know what I mean? It's like a slippery slope. It's like, all right, I'm just not going to talk about anything that's happening right now. I'm not going to talk about the Nazi salute because I don't want a question on Gaza, It's
Well, and I
super
also think
dangerous.
it's like you come out against the administration asks any of the big tech boys who are in their back pocket to
Yeah.
de-amplify you.
Yeah.
And then like you're not getting the Q rating you need, which means you're not getting the brand money you want, which means you're not
True.
getting the commercial in the thing, which means you're not getting the role in the thing. Like all of this stuff is so deeply intertwined.
It's true.
And it's like the Trump administration, the Trump boys have been very, very smart to like roll these dudes up. And these dudes have been total cowards to like let themselves to be rolled up like this, despite having all the money in the world. Like, I don't know. But anyway, having
I will be
money, being
watching. I
such
will
a
be
coward.
watching. Because I'm like very thick in the weeds on all this stuff because I'm very intrigued by it. But there is currently Artists for Ceasefire. As you remember, last year they had red pins in solidarity with Gaza and for a free Palestine. And so a number of organizations that I won't name have been proactively telling Artists for Ceasefire that any celebrity that wears a red pin, especially in the wake of what just happened this last week, will like that they will go after them and that they will call them, anti-Semitic and all these things. And so
Yeah.
it will be interesting to see if that takes place again. If there will be, folks like Mark Ruffalo, folks like Rami Youssef, folks who've been on the front lines of speaking out for Gaza, if they will be wearing a red pin this weekend. But you're right.
We will find out. I think those two are brave men. I think
I think
Rami
those
and
two
Mark.
will.
And I think the reality is because they've been so consistent about it, they
Yeah,
actually get a lot more leeway. Like people
true.
know what you're getting. And so I think that and both Rami from his stand-up, from how he's written his show, from his appearance
Yeah,
on things like SNL, has been unequivocal in his position, but has also been really kind of human and approachable and accessible, and is also like generous and kind in his positioning on it. He's not calling people's names. He's not
right.
calling everyone horrible or being like, you're a bad person if you don't agree with me. He's just like, surely there's somewhere we can all meet
Yes.
and like agree. And so I think even if he does wear a pin, it's just like, he won't pay a price for it because I think he authentic, right? This goes back
Yes.
to this authenticity around sharing your opinions. And I think so many people who have been punished, it's because they're popping their head up for the first time and it doesn't feel like
Or they're
they
young.
are,
Some of these young actors and actresses I saw that got so. I mean, I felt bad for a lot of them, right? Like, got their first
yeah,
TV role, and then they're just like blacklisted. So
yeah,
you're right, but you are right. Like, it's there is like a little bit of a revealing of. You're right. It's like that authenticity. There's a really
yeah.
great New York Times piece by Kang on the two kinds of politicians this day and age, and what Democrats don't have are we just don't have authentic communicators. We just don't, or are viewed as
Well,
authentic.
we have three. We have Jasmine. We have DNC chair Jasmine. We have President Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and we have Vice President Senator Chris Murphy.
Don't forget our boy Bernie. If only he wasn't like 84 years old.
True.
God bless our guy
Fine.
Bernie.
Yeah. All right, dude. I think we've been talking for 2 hours. Like, I think we have to
Yeah,
put everyone out of their misery.
we haven't done a marathon in a long time. Let's go.
Anyone who's listened all the way through, DM us. We'll send you a free sweatshirt.
You get a free sweatshirt if you listen to the very end. Honestly, be like, bro, I listened to you for 2 hours. I should get a free hoodie.
Done.
We will send you one. We will
Yeah.
send you one. Carrie Twig, I'm gonna see you next week. No?
Yeah. No, week after.
Oh, week after. Oh no, I thought it was next week. Oh no, you're right. Week after.
Monday's the 3rd. I come in the next week. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be fresh off of my Harvard Law thing.
That's right. And we can plan our correspondence stuff. There's so many things we didn't talk about. I mean, how do you even keep up in this? Like, White House correspondence, the new correspondence person quitting, there's been a lot has happened.
A lot has happened. I mean, the White House press room is a complete disaster. Maybe we should focus on that. We should do another recording sooner. Twig and I are also, it's great work, great housekeeping for those who have stayed for 2 hours. Twig and I are going to go to 2 times a week. Let's go. But we should just talk about the press room because I have so many thoughts on it.
Totally.
So many thoughts on it. Like, we should do our own version of breaking down what happens in the press.
We have to apply. They're bringing podcasters. We have to apply.
We should totally apply.
Be like, we'll totally pass. At least we used to be able to pass vet.
We would totally pass vet to be a podcast reporter in the press pool. But have fun this weekend, Twig.
All right, thank you.
I'm rooting for everyone black. I don't know if there are any Asian. I don't know if there are any Asian nominees. So.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. Isn't Mickey from Best Actress from Menorah? Isn't she half at least?
Is she? I don't think I knew that.
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe.
All right.
All right, Twig. We did it,
buddy.
team.
We did it.
Please get your free hoodie. Email us. DM.